What happened when the most feared criminals met their end? The end of the most feared criminals wasn't just death, it was chaos. Stay till the end to uncover the disturbing last words of notorious gangsters before their death, which weren't just chilling, they were cold as they were. Let's start with King Von, a rapper whose life was tragically cut short. Before he was killed in a shooting outside a nightclub in Atlanta in 2020, King Von's social media was filled with a different kind of energy. In the early hours of November 6th, 2020, just a day before his fate was sealed, Von posted to Instagram with his usual confidence. It was a promo for his new video, Armed and Dangerous. The caption read, "Armed and Dangerous video drops tomorrow. Y'all want it?" At the time, it seemed like just another hype drop for his 2.4 million followers. But now, it reads like a prophecy. Within 24 hours, King Von was gone. His life cut short in a sudden storm of gunfire outside an Atlanta hookah lounge. Just 26 years old. A rising star, silenced before his prime. When news of the shooting broke, it hit the streets like a bomb. Fans flooded his page. The comment section overflowed with heartbreak and disbelief, as if clinging to his last public words could somehow bring him back. But what about his real last words? The day after his death, Von's ex-girlfriend and fellow artist Asian Doll shocked the internet. She tweeted out what she claimed were his dying words. "Y'all let them niggas get up on me. Y'all let them get me." She said a spiritual advisor had passed those words on to her. And just like that, a new piece of Von's legacy was born. Fans ran with it. The quote spread like wildfire, but not everyone bought it. Von's manager, who was actually there during the shootout and took a bullet himself, he said Von didn't say those words. He was unconscious after being shot. There were no dramatic final moments, just blood, bullets, and chaos.
First of all, no disrespect to Asian Doll. And we spoke this morning because I seen some of the tweets and some of the stuff, and I reached out to her. I'm like, "Hey, bro, I know you mourning and you hurt like everybody else, but you need to slow down because one, you wasn't there. So how can you make assumption and accuse guys of doing this and that?" And the last words that she's talking about, and it's in a text message, and I can show you. She's talking to Von through her spiritual advisor from after death.
Wait. So this is what she tweeted. She tweeted, Von's last word was, "Y'all let them niggas get up on me. Stop crying. Y'all let them get me." As if Von was talking to his homie saying,
"Hold on, Ak. I'm gonna show you right now. I got it right here. Bro. It's a Asian Doll, right?
Yeah.
It's clear.
Yeah.
Her text message clearly.
Yeah.
"Oh, I talked to Von on a spiritual level with a spirit reader, and he's letting shit be known. He's talking for sure, and he feel y'all shouldn't let him he feel y'all shouldn't let them get him." Facts.
Some believe Asian Doll's version is like scripture. Others trust the cold facts from the scene. But that's the thing about King Von. Even in death, his story walks the line between truth and myth, reality and street tale. The silence he left behind says enough. Nipsey Hussle. Some last words hit harder, but Nipsey Hussle's, they still echo through the streets of LA. Just moments before he was killed, Nipsey posted one last message on Twitter. It said, "Having strong enemies is a blessing." At first, it seemed like just another deep quote, something motivational. But minutes later, he was gunned down in that same parking lot. Suddenly, that tweet felt like a warning, like he knew what was coming. It spread fast. That one sentence became more than a tweet. It became his final message to the world. But that final tweet wasn't the only warning Nipsey gave us. In interviews not long before his death, he spoke on the dangers that come with success. He said, "You're dealing with the pressures of people trying to bring harm your way. It turns into jealousy, hate, violence." Looking back now, it's almost like he was telling us his own future, like he saw it coming, but kept going anyway. Because that's who Nipsey was. He knew the risks, but he never backed down. The last words of mob bosses. Not all last words play out in public or in violence, Sometimes they happen in a quiet room at the end of a long life. Carlo Gambino, the notorious boss of bosses of the New York mafia, died at home in 1976 after decades of ruling the underworld. He was 74 and had managed to avoid prison his entire career. According to mob lore, Gambino's final act was to make peace with his maker. As he lay dying, he summoned a priest and confessed all of his sins, seeking absolution for a lifetime of murders and racketeering. And he died in a state of grace. Carlo Gambino's last words, uttered to his family as he lay dying in 1976, were reportedly, "I'm going to be with my friends now." It was a simple statement, but it says so much. For someone who had spent decades evading the law and outsmarting his enemies, there was no fear in Gambino's voice. His words weren't ones of regret, but of acceptance. It was as if death had come as a familiar visitor. Similarly, John Gotti, the man who once ruled the streets of New York, as the boss of the Gambino crime family, met his end, not with a bang, but with a whisper. Locked behind bars, Gotti's final days were quiet, but far from forgotten. In the end, he didn't leave behind a tearful confession or a desperate plea. He left a warning. Don't ever say anything you don't want played back to you someday. That one line was cold, calculated. It wasn't just advice, it was a final flex. To the last breath, Gotti was thinking like a king. And not every gangster gets to die quietly in a bed. Some are taken out fast, no goodbyes, no last words. Others see death coming but still refuse to beg, cry, or confess. One of the strangest examples of this is Dutch Schultz, a feared New York mobster from the 1930s. He was shot multiple times inside a New Jersey restaurant, and by the time police reached him, he was lying in a hospital bed, barely clinging to life. The cops gathered around him, hoping to hear something useful, maybe a name or a clue to his shooter, but instead of a confession, Dutch gave them nothing but pure nonsense. His last words were bizarre. "A boy has never wept, nor dashed 1,000 Kim. Oh, dog biscuit." A random stream of babble that left everyone confused. Not a message, not a warning. He died mumbling into the void with no courage, no regret, and no answers. Just a gangster fading into darkness, lost in the maze of his own mind. Gang leaders on death row face their final moment with chilling awareness. As the clock ticks down, they're given a chance to speak their last words. But what they choose to say, or remain silent about, can be their final act of defiance, redemption, or pure cold calculation. Will they confess, slam the system, or leave the world wondering? This moment becomes their final legacy. In the case of the infamous American gangster Stanley Tookie Williams, the co-founder of the Crips, and a man who spent decades behind bars, transforming into an anti-gang activist, chose silence. When the time came and officials asked if he had any last words, he refused to speak. No apology, no plea, no goodbye. Just complete silence. That decision stunned many. The warden later described him as ever defiant, a man who wouldn't bend, even at the end. Looking across these stories, what do these last words tell us about the personalities of these notorious figures? Drop your thoughts below. This tension between remorse and defiance, it's the final test of a gangster's legacy. When the end comes, do they take off the mask and show regret, or do they wear it tighter, doubling down on pride and principle? The answer isn't always the same. Some soften when they know they've got something, or someone left to live for others. They stay loyal to the code even if it costs them everything. On the remorseful side, we have someone like Carlo Gambino, seeking forgiveness at the very end. That suggests that guilt and fear of eternal consequences finally caught up with him. On the other hand, figures like Stanley Tookie Williams, who had come to terms with the inevitable, reflected a different side of the criminal mind, one that accepts fate but never fully surrenders to it. So what happens to these last words after the dust settles? In the world of gangsters, their final statements become part of the mythology that surrounds them. Families, followers, and even enemies preserve these last moments as a legacy. In gang culture, last words hold a powerful position. They are not just the final utterances of a person. They are transformed into sacred texts, passed down from generation to generation. They become part of the narrative that shapes the persona of these larger-than-life figures, fueling the mythos that surrounds them. In gang culture, having a memorable exit can elevate someone from mere mortal to icon. It's a form of immortality. So, what do you think? Are the disturbing last statements of gangsters worth remembering? Or should they fade away with their crimes? Share your thoughts below. Thanks for watching. Until the next chapter in the Outlaw Book.